Night settled slowly over the city of marble and stone, as if it needed time to gather the courage to touch such power. Lamps were lit one by one along the palace corridors, their flames trembling in bowls of oil. Shadows stretched across painted walls, moving like quiet thoughts that no one dared to speak aloud. Outside, Rome murmured in its sleep, unaware of the heavy silence pressing against the highest chambers. The Empress stood alone near a tall window. She did not lean out, but she felt the night air through the open shutters. It carried distant sounds, footsteps of guards, a cart rolling over stone, a faint laugh far below. These sounds reminded her that life continued beyond these walls. Inside the palace, everything felt suspended, as if time itself waited for her next breath. She wore a simple robe, lighter than the ceremonial garments she was known for. Gold and jewels rested untouched on a table behind her. Tonight, she wanted no armor. Power weighed heavily during the day. At night, it pressed even harder, because there was no one to perform for, no court to impress. Only the truth remained, standing beside her like a silent witness. Her life had been decided long before she understood what choice meant. Marriage had come with cheers and rituals, but affection had never followed. The emperor was distant, wrapped in duty and ambition. Their conversations were measured, polite, and empty. They shared meals, not thoughts. They shared a title, not warmth. People believed that power filled every space in her life. They imagined endless pleasure, freedom, and indulgence. They were wrong. Power, she had learned, often replaced freedom instead of granting it. Every step she took was watched. Every word was remembered. Even her silences were studied. As the night deepened, a quiet unrest stirred within her. It was not hunger of the body alone, but something older and deeper. A longing to be seen as more than a symbol. A wish to feel real, if only for a few hours. She had spent years listening to others speak for her, decide for her, shape her image. Tonight, that weight felt unbearable. She moved from the window and walked slowly across the cool floor. Her footsteps echoed softly, counting the seconds of her restlessness. The palace seemed to breathe with her, walls holding secrets older than memory. Many had lived and suffered here. Many had loved and lost, all under the same painted ceilings. The Empress stopped near a bronze mirror. The reflection showed a calm face, trained to reveal nothing. Yet her eyes betrayed a storm. She touched her cheek lightly, as if to confirm that she was still there beneath the role she played. A decision formed not suddenly, but gently, like dawn after a long night. It was not reckless. It was careful, deliberate, born from years of silence. She would step outside the shape the world had carved for her. Just once. Just tonight. Far below, arrangements had already been set in motion by trusted hands who asked no questions. Discretion was the strongest currency in Rome. The Empress returned to the window and closed her eyes. The night waited patiently, as it always had. The room prepared for the gathering was not grand. It was hidden deep within the palace, away from ceremonial halls and public eyes. Its walls were plain, its light low and warm. Curtains softened the edges of the space, turning stone into something almost gentle. The air smelled faintly of oil and incense, chosen to calm rather than excite. One by one, they arrived. Quietly. Carefully. No names were spoken. Names carried danger. Each man was chosen not for status, but for silence. They entered with lowered gazes, aware of the line they were crossing. None of them believed this night would bring reward. They believed only that it would leave a mark, unseen but permanent. The Empress entered last. She did not wear a crown. Her hair fell freely over her shoulders, unbound by pins or symbols. When she stepped into the room, conversation died instantly. Not from fear alone, but from the weight of her presence. Power clung to her even without adornment. She did not speak at first. She looked at them slowly, not as objects, not as tools, but as people. That was what surprised her most. In their uncertainty, she recognized her own. The realization softened something inside her chest. What followed was not chaos, as later stories would claim. It was measured, quiet, almost solemn. There was no laughter, no crude display. Each moment unfolded slowly, guided by unspoken understanding. The Empress was not seeking excess. She was seeking escape from isolation. Time moved strangely within those walls. Hours blurred, marked only by the dimming and refilling of lamps. The Empress felt herself changing, not in body, but in spirit. With each encounter, a layer of expectation peeled away. She was no longer performing a role. She was simply present. Yet beneath the calm, tension remained. Every sound carried the threat of discovery. Every pause invited reflection. Between moments, she would step aside, breathe, and steady herself. She was not lost to desire. She was aware of the edge she walked. The men, too, felt the weight of the night. Some trembled, some grew distant, some seemed almost sorrowful. None of them spoke. Words would have broken the fragile balance. Silence kept them safe, if only temporarily. As the night neared its end, fatigue settled over the room like a heavy cloak. The Empress stood again near a curtain, watching shadows move. She felt neither triumph nor regret. What she felt was something quieter, relief. For a few hours, she had belonged to herself. When the final lamp flickered low, the gathering ended as it had begun. Quietly. One by one, they left, disappearing back into the sleeping city. No promises were made. No glances lingered. Only memory remained. The Empress stayed behind, alone once more. She wrapped her robe tighter and listened to the returning silence. Dawn was not far away. Morning arrived without mercy. Light crept into the palace, touching corners the night had softened. Servants moved through corridors as they always did, careful and observant. The world resumed its rhythm, indifferent to what had passed. The Empress bathed and dressed in ceremonial robes once again. Gold rested on her shoulders. Her hair was arranged with precision. When she looked into the mirror, the woman staring back seemed unchanged. Only she knew the difference. Rumors began as whispers often do, without shape, without source. A look held too long. A servant dismissed too quickly. Silence, when expected to be filled, drew attention. Rome thrived on stories, especially those involving power. She felt the shift before she heard the words. The emperor grew colder, more distant than before. Meetings felt heavier. Glances lingered with suspicion. No accusation was made, yet the air between them thickened with doubt. Inside, the Empress prepared herself. She had known this risk. She had accepted it long before the first lamp was lit. What surprised her was not fear, but calm. The night had given her something steady to stand on. When the whispers finally reached her clearly, they were louder than she expected. Not the truth, but exaggeration. Numbers grew. Details twisted. The quiet search for humanity became painted as wild indulgence. She listened without reacting, her face as still as marble. What hurt was not judgment, but misunderstanding. No one asked why. No one wondered what loneliness could drive a person to seek connection in forbidden ways. History rarely asked such questions. It preferred spectacle. She walked through the palace gardens one afternoon, alone. Leaves stirred under her feet. The sky stretched wide and indifferent above her. For the first time in years, she felt grounded. Whatever followed, she would face it awake. Power, she realized, was not in denying oneself endlessly. It was in choosing, even when the cost was high. She had chosen honesty with herself, even if the world refused to understand it. Time passed, as it always does. The scandal never truly faded, but it settled into history's long memory, reshaped by those who told it. The Empress remained in her position, though the warmth of favor never fully returned. She carried herself with quiet dignity, untouched by apology. At night, she would sometimes return to the same window. The city still breathed below, unchanged by her private rebellion. Lamps still glowed. Footsteps still echoed. Life continued, as it always had. She did not romanticize the night. She did not wish to repeat it. It existed as a single chapter, complete and closed. A moment when she stepped outside the role given to her and touched something real. In later years, she became known for her calm wisdom, for her measured counsel. Few remembered the reasons behind her strength. Fewer still cared. History reduced her to a symbol, a warning, a scandal. But within herself, she carried a different ending. She had learned that desire was not weakness. That silence could wound more deeply than any accusation. That one night, lived honestly, could sustain a lifetime of restraint. As age softened her steps and quieted the palace around her, the Empress found peace not in approval, but in understanding herself. The night that once threatened to define her became simply part of her story, not its end. When she finally closed her eyes for the last time, Rome slept as it always had. Lamps flickered. Shadows moved. And somewhere within those walls, the echo of a woman choosing herself lingered, calm and unbroken.